back into our lesson. Great lesson. We're going to have to do a little thinking tonight. We're well within the wilderness with the children of Israel. Remember, I'm telling you often, it's supposed to take about 2 weeks. 2 weeks to get from the Red Sea to the Promised Land, which is Canaan. It wasn't a hard journey. Remember, God had brought them out of Egypt, all these plagues. Pharaoh and his army, we saw, had been drowned in the Red Sea. All they could do is do what God said. God even said, you know what, I'm going to give you a spotlight. I'm going to lead you a cloud by day and a fire by night. I'm going to feed you food. I'm going to cause water to come out of rock. All you got to do is just do what I tell you to do. But somehow they're going to mess it up. Amen. When we think about what God asks us to do, really, I go to the scriptures all the time, and really it's pretty simple. Our issue is we want it our way. Really, it really is. We're going to get into it, and we know we live in a time of grace, but the Ten Commandments were just 10 commandments. Just 10 commandments. And they encompassed a lot of things we'll see in the expanded law. But God made things simple. It's us who make things complicated. So notice tonight as we jump into this lesson, we're going into chapter 18 in the wilderness. And we pick up this guy. We've actually met him some while ago when Moses had to exit out of Egypt because of his murder. He married a lady, and his father-in-law Jethro came in. Now Jethro is coming back to meet them in the wilderness, and he's going to speak into Moses' life. So I need you to start thinking about it. I want to set this up. How is Moses getting direction all through this journey? From God. God would speak to Moses as a man spoke to man, face to face. We know Moses can hear from God. So I want you to really think why God allows this to come in. And we know Moses does what God tells him to do. I mean, to have the rod, strike the rock, speak to the... We know all of those scenarios. Moses is hearing the voice of the Lord. So now we have another scenario that we're going to have to deal with in the wilderness. Someone read Exodus 18, 1 and 2, please.
Israel that the Lord had brought Israel out of Egypt. Then Jethro, Moses' father-in-law, took the board which Moses wanted. After 10 Jethro, Moses'
All right, there's several things that kind of pop out within those verses. What sticks out to you in verses 1 and 2? All right, so we know that the father-in-law and the wife have a good relationship with Moses. What else about Jethro sticks out? He's a priest, all right, a Midian. Now, we don't understand all the beliefs that he had at this point. We have to assume that he has had an encounter with Jehovah just because of Korah and Moses and this whole process, but there's still some questions there. Cindy, go ahead and read that commentary, please.
The events are not chronological. Jethro is described as coming to Moses at Mount Sinai in verse 5, but the Israelites did not arrive at Mount Sinai until chapter 19, verse 2. One commentator suggests that this arrangement is to clear the way for an uninterrupted account of the meeting with Jehovah and the giving of the law. Moses had probably left his wife and 2 sons in Egypt when he went back to Egypt.
All right, and we understand as we were going through that, we assumed that he left his wife because they had to go through a lot while they were in Egypt. So now the reuniting of the family takes place within the wilderness, and now we see Jethro again. So Jethro comes fresh. He hasn't experienced the plagues. He hasn't experienced the Red Sea, but he has the wife. He has the grandsons, and so now he comes in to see. There's a million plus, at least a million plus Israelites in the wilderness. Moses is the leader. Aaron is kind of second in charge. Moses has that rod, cloud by day, fire by night. God is providing the food. Now Jethro looks in on this. Someone read 18, 3 through 7, please.
For he said, I have been a stranger in a foreign land. And the name of the other was Moses, for he said, the God of my father is my help, and delivered me from the sword of Pharaoh. And Jethro, Moses' father-in-law, came with his sons and his wife to Moses in the wilderness, where he was encamped at the mountain of God. Now he had said to Moses, I, your father-in-law Jethro, am coming to you with your wife and her 2 sons with her. So Moses went out to meet his father-in-law, bowed down and kissed him. They asked each other about their well-being, and they went into the tent.
We see an immense respect shown by Moses. Now, don't forget, God speaks to Moses. He doesn't really have to show a whole bunch of people respect at this point, but he does. He shows his father-in-law immense respect. All of this talking about the family reunited, as said before, but also notice some things that stick out. Names. We've said this over and over again. Some of you are at the age that you're going to have grandkids and all of that. Don't let your kids name your grandkid a name that they don't even have an understanding of. Right? Don't let them make up a name for that child without understanding the roots of it, because names are so powerful. Really blessed about the Zulabus. I heard the real name of their children, and it blessed my heart, because names carry a destiny. Because every time you say that, you're speaking into someone's life. We pondered over the names of our children. We believe the Lord put it in our hearts, and every now and then that name, the real meaning, will come back. Notice some names that stick out here. It says that Gershon, for he said, I have been a stranger in a foreign land. So every time he would look at that son, he would be reminded that he was a stranger. And we need to be reminded, even here in the United States of America, in the world, we're strangers here. If you are a Christian, as the days get darker, you're going to feel like you just don't fit in. More and more. I'm telling you, if you're saved, it's a progressive walk. I can tell you, we really don't have cable, at least what we look at per se, but it's progressively getting harder to see something that blesses me, that encourages me. The other day, I won't tell you, one of my kids, I came in tired, walked in the house, and they were listening to a song, and briefly, right there in my house. In my house, the preacher's house, Pastor Wood's house, and my kids were like, I was like, well, you listen to the rest of the song, what's going on? And this is what's happening in our society. It is everywhere. Not just that, maybe you're okay with cursing, all right? It kind of irritates me. That's just me coming to that. We all are at our levels, wherever. There are other stuff that irritates you. We grow together, but just talking about fitting in society, on our jobs, the conversations, you should find it increasingly harder to even participate with many of the conversations on your job. People who are unsaved, you just don't fit in. And the news, my Lord, it will get on your nerves, because you'll start realizing the redundancy of it, the things that they're trying to bring out. And you can see a lot of things that we see on TV are trying to get things to kind of lift us up. My battery just went out, don't worry about it. Always is bothering. And so this whole process here, it comes against us. Yes, ma'am.
That's my belief as well, Dad, because I feel like Doug and I, we live as, that is not our house, that belongs to God. And so anything that takes place in there, if it's not pleasing to God, then you can't do that. You don't make the house payment, he does. So therefore, if that's what you would like to do, you need to go to your house and do it. And 9 times out of 10, if you're 16 years old, you don't have a house.
Foreign land, every time he would look at that child. And then look at that next part where he said, Eleazar, the God of my father, was my help and delivered me from the sword of Pharaoh. So we would look at the other child and he would think about deliverance, what God had done. And that's what our name should lead to us. That's why in heaven, and put that scripture down, I should have, but it says that we're going to get a new name. God actually names us the right name. What a blessing. Look at that commentary. Someone go ahead and read that commentary now, Jethro.
Now Jethro brings before him Gershom and Eleazar, my God is help. Moses was joyous beginning. It appears that Jethro had become convert to the one true God here, though some scholars believe he had already been a worshiper of the Lord.
All right, so we have questions here. We know he's a priest of Midian, but we have questions on his belief. So all we can say now is that hopefully he had come in contact with him and that he does believe, but now his belief is very important because he's going to start giving suggestions on leadership. Look at this next verse. Someone read the 8th verse.
And Moses told his father-in-law all that the Lord had done to Pharaoh and to the Egyptians for Israel's sake, all the hardships that had come upon them on the way, and how the Lord had delivered them.
What should our testimonies be based on? Anybody? What should our testimonies be based on? According to that scripture. Our deliverance. In concerning what? Who? God. What God has done for us. And sometimes our testimonies are not centered on that. We should be centered on what God has done for us because our testimonies are really a witness for the Lord. Our testimony should always point people to Christ. All right? Your testimony is not just something you stand up and do at testimony service. Your testimony is how you carry yourself, how you talk, the example that you put forth. Notice, and Moses told his father-in-law all the Lord had done to Pharaoh and to the Egyptians for Israel's sake. That's the crux. So that whole conversation was about the goodness of the Lord. Jethro, let me tell you about what God does and what he's done for me. So at that point, Jethro is hearing all of this. Look at that next verse, 9 and 10. Someone read, please. All right, now we've learned some things about Jethro's personality here. He is happy to receive this testimony. All right, we can all agree with that. But even Moses having to tell him this testimony lets him know there's a disconnect, that really Jethro didn't know all that the Lord had done. Also, notice what he does. After he hears this, he begins to bless the Lord. He says, Jethro rejoiced for all the good which the Lord had done for Israel, whom he delivered out of the hand of the Egyptians. And Jethro said, blessed be the Lord, who has delivered you out of the hand of the Egyptians and out of the hand of Pharaoh, and who has delivered the people from under the hand of the Egyptians. So even from this context, we hear a disconnect, that Jethro is kind of an outsider looking in. He does not include himself within the people, and he doesn't really include the Lord as his Lord. We believe in a conversion is taking place at this point, but there still is a disconnect. And this is very important as we're talking to people. People can talk about God, but that's not enough. There must be a relationship with God. You can tell them about your testimony and what God has done, and they can get excited about what God has done for you, but it still has to come to a point that they have personal contact for themselves. That is key, that's critical, that's what our children need to have. You can be a strong parent, love the Lord with your whole heart, but until God connects with them on that personal relationship, it's still just your relationship that the kids look to, and that's not enough. So here, we've got to get Jethro in that personal relationship, but we're going to find out Jethro is a respected man, priest of Midian. He's used to making decisions. He's used to running things. And when you have someone, we can only assume here that Jethro is older than Moses. He's had some years over him, so he's an elder. So he comes in, he looks around, and now he tries to put things in place. We have to be careful, because we're going to have to deal with Moses' direction was only coming from God. All right, look at this next one, Exodus 18:11. Someone read.
Now I know that the Lord is greater than all the gods, for the very thing which is big probably he was possible.
I love this. Now we see a kind of a conversion testimony. He says, and now what? So you hear the doubt before? Within the scripture, now I know. Before there was kind of question. All right? Because, I knew you were going to Egypt and doing all that stuff. That's why I kept your wife and grandkids, because we didn't know if you were going to make it back. Right? That's why we weren't living in Egypt in the first place. We were living in the mountains. But since you told me this, now I know for myself, I know that the Lord is greater than. So we can sense, even by his conversation at this point, that maybe had been some worship of other gods in his life. But he says, now I know that this God is bigger than all the other gods. I know by your testimony, for in this very thing in which they behaved proudly, he was above them. James 4:6, someone read that.
But he gives more grace. Therefore he said, God resists the proud, but gives grace to the humble.
So he's looking at all of these pictures, and I encourage you, it's a powerful scripture I found in my life. If you're a proud person, and many of us have been raised to be proud, you need to humble yourself real quick. Because if you don't humble yourself, God will allow circumstances in your life to humble you. He will, because that's how blessings come, when we are humbled, when we are pushed into a place of humility before God. Jethro's acknowledgement that the Lord is greater than all gods either indicates great respect for Jehovah or else a full salvation experience. He was a descendant of Abraham through Keturah, Genesis 25, 1-2. So we see all of them are cousins anyway. Please know, even though with Israel now, they're extended out, but they're all cousins. They fighting cousins over there. All of them, they look alike. You can't really tell them apart. They're really extended cousins. They all come from the same line. And if we were honest with ourselves, all of us really come from the same line. His name was Adam. All right, we just extended out, and so we all are related via Adam. Thank God for Jesus, though, putting us into the family of Christ himself. Look at that next verse, Exodus 18:12. Someone read. When we believe, we must do. I found it out. When you truly believe, you're going to do something. What did Jethro do? Communion or sacrifice to God. In essence, you put your money where your mouth is. If you believe, you're going to do. And that's my concern. There's so many people that say they believe, but their belief is not being followed by doing something. And it's not just giving money to the church. That's what I'm talking about. If you believe, then you're going to strive to live that way. And I got a friend now that's struggling with that thought pattern. I believe in grace. I believe that by grace we're saved, not of ourselves. It's a gift of God. Man, I'm totally into that. But I also believe if you're saved, then there are going to be some examples in your life of that. And there's going to be a change in your life. There's going to be a sanctification process in your life. And we see with Jethro, he does something. He offers sacrifice because he believes that Jehovah is everything. And in essence, he comes under by offering these sacrifices. Look at this next part, 18:13. Someone read.
So it was on the next day that Moses sat before the people, and the people stood before Moses from morning until evening.
So let's take a thought that Jethro is a newbie, all right, coming to Jehovah, but yet he's an elder. He's lived a long time. He has a lot of great ideas. So he's looking in on Moses, and what do we notice about Moses at this point? What's going on? He's judging. And how long is this taking place? Yeah. Well, when you got 1 million plus folks, there's going to be issues. There's going to be problems. Somebody going to steal from somebody. Somebody going to lose something. It's going to... In essence, Moses has become the law enforcement of the land. All right? He hears from God, so people, they want things to be fixed. They're not able to solve it between themselves, so they go to Moses, and they actually wait. Kind of like going to social services or whatever, tax department. You just kind of wait all day until they finally let you in. And this whole process goes on every day. Moses is taking this on. But I give you the insight, we're going to deal with this a little later. God knew this was going to happen. right? He understood this. And then we have to deal with the backside. God is still leading them cloud by day, fire by night, and the people are still acting stupid. When you think, if you saw God's presence in a cloud, the fire at night, wouldn't you think you would live right? Sin. Even with that physical symbol of God, people are still acting up. That's what I found out a long time. Just because you come to church, don't mean you holy and saved. Some people do stupid stuff in church. Yeah, right in church. That's why you need to keep an eye on your kids. Yeah, we walk through the church, we have trustees walking in church, just looking in the room, just to keep everybody honest. Yeah, just to keep everybody honest. I do. I realize in church things happen. I love y'all, I trust all y'all, but I still zip my wife's pocketbook when she gets up and moves. Why? Because the temptation is there. Sin is there. Stresses are there amongst us all. And Moses has to take all of these things into account. And there he is judging the people. They stood before him from morning till evening. Someone read that next verse.
And Moses' father-in-law saw all the people. She said, "What is this that you are doing? Why do you
Good question. Good question. But still, this is Moses, God's man. So now we're kind of dealing with it. And I look at it from all sides. Moses has never been really confronted like this. All right? Not in the wilderness. He's been top leader. He's the one who talks to the Lord. Now Jethro comes in. He probably just doesn't know how things run. All right? That actually God speaks directly to Moses. Moses tells everybody what to do. But at this point, Jethro looks at it and says, it's not good. Do you agree with Jethro? You can kill him.
I agree with Jethro because with God, we don't know whether God was speaking to Moses every day, every week, or today, and skip 2 weeks, or whatnot. But I've always figured when I read it, kind of like when John the Baptist started baptizing, it took a while for them to get around to people. And when the Holy Spirit came, it took a while for people, ask people, have you heard about the Holy Spirit? No, we haven't so much. They didn't heard about the Holy Spirit. Jethro, it sounded like he knew God, but he didn't know a lot of, he was a priest, but he didn't know as much as Moses knew about God, since God had introduced to him. He saw some things, I think, in a godly way.
Okay, all right.
And Moses is not that, God may not have been talking to him every day. He had been talking to him, but not every day, so I think everything was in order. I think Jethro just saw this, and he was using the wisdom that God had gave him.
All right, so we're feeling that God has allowed Jethro to come in to bring the word. Brother Robert.
I think one thing that makes the people of children of Israel, they forget things so quickly.
Okay.
It looks like they forgot about what God has done for them, where He has took them from, and what He has taken them through, and what He has brought them through. They tend to forget about that thing so quickly. That is why they have to go back to doing things, even though they have a cloud behind them, around them, cover them, shield them. They're still doing things they're not supposed to do. So if we also do the same thing and we forget about all the good things that God has done for us, and we tend to just forget about it, we might go back to do the same thing like the children of Israel.
All right. So maybe we're looking at that there should be a management issue, but because of sin, it still has to be dealt with. Yes, sir.
I feel too, I can see too that this is our brothers and sisters.
All right.
We just need to step back for obviously let you suffer. When they sit down, but we saw the thing that people did.
All right. Good advice. Yeah.
And it also says that Moses did this for the people. So it wasn't that God necessarily told him to judge the people. He was doing it because the people asked him. They probably could have gotten the fire and the cloud were right there. They could have probably gone to God and got some guidance, but Moses wasn't there and was talking, so he did it for the people. So it seemed like the people asked him to do it, but God didn't necessarily ask him.
Okay, so we got some kind of leeway within this. Now get all the hands. Look at this next part. Next two verses. Someone read, please. 15 and 16.
And Moses said to his father-in-law, because the people come to me to inquire of me, but they have a difficulty, they come to me, and I judge between one and another, and I make known the statutes of God in their hearts.
Good answer. They have difficulties. Come to me. If God speaks to me, I tell them what God says. We fix the problem. Jethro is listening. Jethro is learning, okay, this is how it's done. But still, we believe God is using him in one respect. So he's going to bring wisdom to the situation. Look at this, listen.
I was gonna say, Jethro, just seems pretty that he had problems, and the way he saw Moses doing it, he didn't understand. He thought, so it maybe this could be done that way, because maybe he had experienced the same thing all the time.
Right. How old is Moses? I want you remember? Huh? Yeah, he was 40 years in Egypt before he committed the murder, 40 years in the mountain, and so from there, he's already 80, comes back, does that, so he's in his 80s. He's Deacon Lenny's age. All right, Deacon Lenny is 81 years old. All right, so he's Deacon Lenny's age, and we assume that Jethro is older. Jethro even sounds, anybody named Jethro sounds old, right? So we assume that Jethro is older than him, just the way he speaks in his life. So there are some life experiences, but it is true that Moses is new in managing this many people. All right, now he grew up in Egypt, and he was, kind of, I wouldn't say second in charge, but Pharaoh's son, so he understands about people, but to manage himself, this is kind of a new thing, especially with these folks, because Israelites were known as stubborn people, stiff-necked people, all right, and God chose them. This is amazing. God could have chose some other people, more gentler people, but he chose Jews. And even today, they say, Jews, they're very shrewd, and, when they get stuck in their ways, they are stuck in their ways. God says, I'm going to make these my people. That's great. Yes, ma'am.
I didn't know, I don't know, but I kind of see it like, for, like, going back to the previous scripture, like where God, Moses was, kind of frustrated with people that were resisting him, still coming, and maybe he needed to separate himself from people so that he wouldn't be, kind of thrown into a depression.
That's a good point. Amen. Because I believe sometimes you can get so caught up with the problems and miss the voice of God. And this is that whole process that Jethro, I believe, is trying to prevent within this. Yes, sir.
Yeah, that's what I was sort of feeling, that Jethro didn't know that the Lord was using Moses and allowing Moses to make the situation because he's going to set them in, they're going to be separated to a point where they.
Right. Yes, sir.
Moses had the right idea. They needed, he's the only thing keeping God from wiping them all out, really, but he needed, just train up some other people to help him. Sometimes you think you got to do it all.
Right.
And through the wisdom of God, God is talking directly to him, and God can't tell him everything in one set. But with the wisdom that he gives from God, that's the thing that he's done a great job. But, but he's got a lot older than this thing. Just a minute, you got God, you need this, and what I'm seeing is this is out.
You think he's thinking about Zipporah?
Yes.
The grandson? You sit here all day, how's my family going to be ministered to? Someone read this next portion, because we're really getting into it, 17 through 19. Someone read, please.
So Moses' father-in-law said to him, the thing that you do is not good. Both of you, these people who are with you, will surely wear yourselves out. For this thing is too much for you. You are not able to perform it by yourself. Listen now to my voice. I will give you counsel, and God will be with you. Stand before God for the people, so that you may bring the difficulties to God.
Now, I do agree. But we must give space that he has been surviving up to this point. All right? So Jethro was coming in And he's kind of missed, he missed the rock incident. He missed the manna. He missed the quail. He's missed all that. He missed, when there was no water, all of those things. God has sustained Moses up to this point. But from his viewpoint, Moses, if you continue in this, you are going to wear yourself out. Go ahead and read that commentary, Brother Goins, please.
This would ease the burden on Moses and enable the work to be handled more quickly. Some think that Jethro's counsel was divinely given to confer a sensible delegation of authority to others. Others remind us, however, that God never assigns tasks without giving grace to them. Up to this time, God had been speaking to Moses as a man speaks with a friend and had not been using a go-between. Therefore, Moses should have carried on until God himself made other arrangements.
Do you think she should have followed Jethro's advice? Why or why not? Kind of know where you feel at. Yes, ma'am.
I would say no on Jethro's advice, only because I feel that if God gives you a job or a task to do, he's not going to give it to you empty-handed. He's going to give you whatever you need that's going to sustain you through that task, whatever strength you need.
And that is the flip side of this. I want to believe God brings Jethro in, but there is a concern for many people that are smarter than me that have looked at this, that possibly this could have been a step to the decline of Moses' leadership when he allowed others to come in. Just a possibility. And even in all this, is Moses going to get to the land of Canaan? No. Not with his body. All right, his eyes going to be able to look over to it. But even after all of this delegation and everything, people are still going to get on his last nerve. Right? And I can't wait to get to that point, because that reminds me, don't let folks get on your last nerve. Don't let anybody keep you out of the promised land. I was saying, y'all stay right here, I'm just going to run over there. Because y'all just get there the way you need to get there. But this whole process, we see, seems like great advice. And my concern is, I believe it is great advice, but pray. Great advice can be wrong advice for you. So you need to make sure that you're in the will of God and according to God's plan. Very important. Yes, ma'am.
As we were reading this, I'm like, this sounds so familiar. Okay, in the New Testament, that's how we ended up with deacons and such, because one person was trying to do everything. And so, would it not be feasible to have other people helping?
Most definitely.
Yeah.
Most definitely. But the premise is to make sure this is what God wants for this time. And we're going to deal with another thing, that you got the right people. Yes, ma'am.
And I think too, it's not like Jethro was saying, go home and do the family. He's saying, so that you can focus on God, so that you can spend your time listening and hearing from the Lord. So I think it's one thing to say, you need to rest or whatever, and another thing is going to wear out, and another thing to say, you need to spend all your time, listening to the Father, since you're the one that hears from him. That's like the way you said in the New Testament, that's what they said, so that we can give ourselves to prayer and the ministry of the word. We don't have to do this other stuff, that other.
Good, Shannon.
I was just gonna say, that sounds great, him telling him he needs, he needs help or whatever. But if you've been talking directly to God, why would you take the word of anybody else except for go and talk directly to God again? I would think that he's talked directly to you. I would say, thank you for your advice. Let me go see God and ask him directly. If you have that relationship, right?
He is a father-in-law.
He's a father-in-law who you brought to Christ, right?
Right?
I'm just saying, so who is the
Shannon, I'm feeling some other stuff going on here.
I'm just thinking logically. I'm just thinking, I don't know. I'm just thinking, if I'm talking to God,
we do feel a little tension going on here. Brother Robert and Chapel.
To be honest, this is a very tricky question about this very thing I heard about. Sometimes in your life, you get a situation where God brings people into your life to be able to advise you or give some wisdom that can help you to be able to accomplish whatever thing that you have as a problem for the kingdom to know with. And the only thing you have to do when you see people come into your life to advise you is to pray about it and to make sure that is exactly what God is actually calling, or that person coming to your life, that advice is exactly coming from God. That's what you have to do. And I think that the way I look at Moses, if he continued to do whatever he's doing, you wouldn't even have time to have one-on-one confrontation with God. No time for him to pray anymore. Because you have to have quiet time to be able to hear from God, from the people of God.
Amen.
So if you don't have that time, how are you going to hear from God to be able to be used to lead the people that God has given you?
Okay.
Yeah, so I look at advice is good, all right, but you have to ask God to ask you to find out whether it's the right
Confirm
thing.
that.
Confirm that.
Okay, all right.
And who's to say that God hadn't said this and he was just like, I can do this? So when Jethro's father-in-law comes, it kind of confirms that for him. And he goes, yeah, God told me to do that 3 months ago, but I felt like I could do it. So when he says it, he's like, cool, it confirms, let's go out and do it instead of the other.
It could be a confirmation. I agree, and I believe that when someone speaks into your life, if you have a relationship with the Lord, it should be a confirmation. It shouldn't be like a total shock. There should be something, because if it's a total shock, you really need to slow it down anyway, because that person can't be your God. Jethro was never meant to be Moses' God. It's advice. So the confirmation needs to come from God. So let's assume that God has already kind of put a nugget within his heart. Confirmation. Yes, sir.
And I think, we look at that, like us, we can't walk in the Spirit all the time. We have to make decisions when we're not in the presence of God. And that's when sometimes people give us advice. Moses is nobody's yes man. And I think that he's able to take advice from people and use the godly wisdom that he got and pray for God and make a decision. Just because Jethro told him to do it, he's been talking to God. He's not going to do it unless he feels like it's in the will of God or he prays with it. Because we already know he's developed into one of the greatest leaders, but he ain't nobody's yes man.
Okay, all right.
But still, being a leader, you have to be able to have people speaking in your life, and you have to decide whether you think it's godly or not. Because you can't walk in the Spirit all the time. Sometimes you can't see Spirit. Because Satan is looking to put the blinders on always. Sometimes, we know. You need a brother or somebody to come put your hand on your shoulder and say, this is what I'm saying. And then you have to decide whether that's getting you back on track or further away. And I think Moses has it perfectly.
Good. There was one more. Yeah.
I was just saying that, whether you should have followed Jethro's advice or not, the advice came his way, and we should have sought God about it, whether or not it was from God, but I think it also speaks to an issue of balance. I think we as Christians sometimes, if we're serious about our faith and our compassion and care for others, we can get busy with helping everybody else and forget about helping our own self, our own spiritual life, and we're so absorbed in praying for this person or praying for that person or doing for this person, that person, that we forget that we ourselves need to be refreshed. We need to be removed from everyone else and spend that one-on-one time with God. And I think sometimes in that advice that maybe Jethro or God was trying to remind Moses, make sure you have that balance, that you're not so concerned about judging the other people, but are you looking at yourself? So maybe if he had started looking at himself, some of these other issues that he faced later on in his leadership could have been circumvented had he taken that time for himself.
All right, good. That whole counsel. Let's get these next verses and I'll get that comment. Someone read 20 and 21 so we can just get a fuller picture there.
We will teach them the statutes of the law, show them the way to do it. They must walk and work they must do. Moreover, you shall select from all the evil able, such as fear God, and the truth, hate them, and place over such over them to be rulers of thousands, rulers of hundreds, rulers of fifties, and rulers of tens.
Go ahead, Dick Lynn.
I just go back to say, God will do everything. Let our brothers and sisters in this house. They really like that. That's true now, man. We ain't good and right, though. Where's that out there?
So the advice is given. So now Jethro tells them, this is how you're supposed to do it. Now look at these steps here. You shall teach them the statutes, because God had directly spoken to Moses. Moses has the statutes. He understands. We're going to even get into those commandments eventually. He says, show them the way in which they must walk and the work must be done. God has showed Moses the way to walk and the work to be done. Now look, there are some very specific things. Moreover, you need to find some, what does able mean? They can do it. Yeah, they're physically and mentally capable that they will do the job. Now that's tough. All right, you got 1 million plus people, and we know that by the numbers. Now look at the details he gives. They got to fear God. Very critical, fear God. And it says men of truth. What does that mean? Not liars, integrity, all of that. And even in this, he chose men, and the men were the leaders of the family, of the clan. There always has to be leaders of that time. So he has those men as leaders. They were the hunters, they were the gatherers, they were there that were in front, but they had to be men of truth. Look at that next part, very powerful. They also had to do what? What does covetousness mean? Yeah, because when you put people in authority and you allow them to speak in people's lives, if they're covetous, they can use that authority to get the stuff of the people. Understand? I see that so often, and it really sickens me because leaders are not supposed to take the stuff of the people for themselves. That is not the purpose. It's not about manipulation, and because you can't be trusted. You're not truthful when you're working in deception to get something for someone else. That's the whole process. I remember this preacher, he was talking about his kid, and he said it dawned on him. He said, you know what, my kids want a swing set. You know what, we just can't do it right now. And he said by the time he finished that service, he had like 15, 20 people say, Pastor, I'll give you the swing set. And he didn't start off that. He just didn't think about the power of manipulation. That he could say something and really, hey, put it out there and get whatever he wanted. And so your leaders cannot be covetous. And it's very powerful. They have to hate covetousness. They have to realize God is their provider and not go after other people's stuff. Very important. There was a hand. Yes, sir. Yes, ma'am. Amen. There had to be a trust process. Notice the line. So you're supposed to teach these. Now Jethro is speaking all of these things. We have to believe that Moses had to have confirmation of this. They had to place them rulers of thousands, right? There's a lot of people. Rulers of hundreds, rulers of 50s, rulers of 10s. In essence, that's how our government is supposed to be set up. There's a lot of strange stuff going on now, but that's the way. You were supposed to have representation of the numbers of the masses, and the representation would speak for the masses in truth. It wouldn't be about the person, it just made it easier to be able to speak to the next level. Look at Exodus 18:22, someone read please.
And let them judge the people at all times. Then it will be that every great matter they shall bring to you, but every small matter they themselves shall judge. So it will be easier for you, and they will bear the burden with you.
Sounds great. The big stuff goes to, but the little stuff, y'all work it out. Now my question, we're going to stop on this verse. I want you to study ahead. How do you differentiate between the big stuff and the little stuff? Brother Rabbit.
That's what I was gonna say. Some people big stuff and other people's little stuff, and other people's little stuff is ginormous. Can't stand it. So my question is, but isn't that the same type of rule they just left? Isn't that how Pharaoh had total power, total authority, but he had his workers who they were seeking with God, obviously. But what I mean is, isn't that kind of how it was set up?
I think I know the separating factor is who you're listening from. So Moses, direct contact with the Lord, and now he's going to teach, he's going to have these men that have these characteristics of God. And so it makes it flow. The problem is when you have this type of leadership and there's no God. And so now you're just dependent on one man. And remember, Pharaoh was known as God. All right, he was a God within himself. Brother Robert.
In Africa, the church that I fellowship with, the International Center of the Church, it's a charismatic church that is actually growing so fast that it got to a point that the pastor decided that, you know what, there are so many things that you cannot do for everybody, and you wouldn't be able to know everybody. So what he did was that, based on this doctrine of this particular teaching, they actually created something called Small Covenant Group. That Small Covenant Group, they are supposed to lead it amongst the church that has every group, and they were divided among the group. So if there's anything going on in that any small group, what happened, you talk to the leader, and the leader takes that afterwards to the pastor and the senior pastor, and then it gets to the and everything was together. So it's, this particular scripture here is something that church has embraced, and because of that, everybody is able to, how do you call it, to have hands, which if you are in need of anything, it's never a problem at all. So I think it's something that I think when the church is starting to grow and it's getting to a point where hands cannot be able to reach everybody. I mean, appointing leaders in the church to do that will be a great help.
And I want to leave with you on this. I really want you to study this. We're in the Old Testament. The biggest time point with this, who did God speak to? Moses. So you got to tie that within the system to that top guy because he's getting direction. Now I challenge you, in the New Testament, there's a new system. He's put gifts in the body, but he's made us all kings and priests. So if you're saved now, God does speak to me. He gives me direction for the body, but the issue is he speaks to you also. So now what I'm speaking to you is supposed to confirm what the Holy Spirit always. So we actually have a different thing, and that's my concern. I see a lot of growth in different places, and I'm being challenged on how should this grow? Because the problem with that, Brother Robert, sometimes that head guy, if he's not in tune with the Lord, now you got the system. In that system that you pay into the bottom level, and the bottom level pays into the top level. What's that called? Pyramid. You do. It does. Anyway, we're finished for tonight. So I want you to really study that because we're going to deal with these leadership qualities, why this worked then, in comparison with what we believe the New Testament church should be now. Those other hands, please bring them back on next time. Come on to your feet. Let's close out in prayer.